When Nannetta Forrest was growing up, a lot went unsaid in her family.
You know, people didn't do a lot of talking back then, and it was almost like trying to pull teeth out of a hen.
She lived nearly her whole life in Indiana, but Nannetta's story, the secrets, and the silence all started in Sikeston, Missouri. Nannetta was born there in 1942. Several months earlier, while her mother was pregnant, Nannetta's father was lynched. His name was Cleo Wright.
He was taken away before I got here.
Taken from a jail cell, taken and dragged through the streets by a white mob. Taken to Sunset Edition, the center of Black life in Sikeston, and lynched. Taken from his family. Nannetta's mother kept quiet. She never wanted her daughter to know what happened to her father. But one day, Nannetta was with her grandfather. A game show that aired on CBS in the 1950s was on TV. It was called Strike It Rich.
Mr. Strike It Rich himself, Warren Hull.
Celebrities would go on and they'd try to win money for like underprivileged people.
Thanks a lot.
And that's when Grandpa told me, he said, "You couldn't go on there, Nan." And I said, "Go on there with what?" And that's when he went in his wallet and pulled out this yellow piece of paper.
It was a newspaper clipping about the lynching of her father.
And that was my first time ever becoming aware of it.
It was around 1955. Nannetta was 13 or 14 at the time.
I did want to know the story behind it, what happened, but nobody seemed to want to talk about it.
Over the years, she pieced together bits of what happened, but there was always one nagging question that didn't have an answer. What would her life have been like if that mob hadn't lynched her dad?
Now, I do often wonder that. Had he been alive when I was born and been in my life, what type of person would I have been? Would I have been the same person? Would I have been a different person? And this is something I'll never know.
I'm Cara Anthony. I'm a health reporter. I've traveled to Sikeston, Missouri for years, asking people about the killing of Cleo Wright and the silence that surrounds his death. Nearly 8 decades after the killing, that silence was still stifling, like generations of stuffed down fear and anger. At nearly every turn, locals refused to talk to me. In fact, many people felt they could not talk to me until I met Makila Jackson.
It's no healing from grief. It's an everyday thing for me.
Makila goes by Kiki. She's in her mid-20s, but she's heard about the lynching back in 1942.
Talk to me a little bit about that. Have you ever heard of
Denzel brought that up to me. Denzel brought that up to me because we used to live on Sunset Street, and he was telling me like they dragged him through Sunset.
Denzel is Denzel Taylor, Kiki's fiance. Sikeston police shot him at least 18 times and killed Denzel in April 2020. He was 23 years old. That year, everyone was talking about new research that found that a Black man had a 1 in 1,000 chance of being killed by police. Denzel Taylor became that 1 in 1,000. Right in the middle of her grief, Kiki refused to be quiet.
The boot heel knows what happened to him. The world, they have no idea who Denzel Taylor is.
The Boot Heel is where Sikeston sits, in the far southeast corner of Missouri.
So that's why I want his story. I want to make him proud, actually. Because I want him to know, look, babe, they going to hear this one way or another.
I made a film about the deaths of Denzel and Cleo, 2 Black men killed decades apart in the same community. For the documentary, we explored questions about the impact of racial trauma and the persistent harm it causes. Here, for the podcast, we're exploring another layer. How does systemic racial violence impact health, the health of Black people in particular? Denzel's story reminds me so much of Cleo's. So many things about their lives and their deaths are similar. They both left behind a daughter they never got to meet. They both were killed by a public health threat of their time, a threat to Black men of their time. For Cleo, that was lynching. For Denzel, it was police violence. Neither of them got their day in court. In this episode, we're looking at what happened to Denzel Taylor. We're exploring police violence as a public health problem, one that's making us sick and cutting lives short. From World Channel and KFF Health News, and distributed by PRX, this is Silence in Sikeston, the podcast about finding the words to say the things that go unsaid. Episode 3, Trauma Lives in the Body. Denzel was from Chicago. Growing up, he spent time in southeastern Missouri with his dad's family. Denzel and Kiki met in Sikeston, and Kiki says they fell in love immediately.
It was a butterfly feeling. Like, you could just tell it was love. It was the best energy ever.
They started their family. Dania was born first. Denzel used to call her Cupcake.
Hey, Cupcake. She said, hey, y'all. I love you, Princess.
Ayana came next. In 2020, Kiki was pregnant with their third daughter, Brooklyn.
He said he wanted 7 kids. I said, Denzel, what? He wanted 7 kids. That's a basketball team. I can't handle that.
They were planning to get married after Brooklyn was born.
I really wanted a big family with Denzel. I wanted to get married. I wanted to go to Dallas. We was planning on moving to Dallas and everything. And it's just like my whole world is just, like it just blew up on me.
Remember 2020? It felt like the news was full of stories about Black people getting killed by police. Videos from body cameras were all over social media. Around that same time, Kiki remembers Denzel getting pulled over by police more and more. And Kiki says he started to become convinced that someday he might be killed by police too.
He said if he was to ever get in any type of interaction with the police, he would let them kill him, just to show how America is. He would bring it up like out of nowhere, and he would say it, and I would wonder like, why is you constantly saying it? And I kind of would get irritated because it's like, that's not a way that I will want you to go out. Like, we're supposed to grow old together.
On April 29th that year, Denzel's premonition came true. Police body cameras captured what happened the night Denzel was killed. You're about to hear a retelling of what happened the night Denzel died, based on interviews with his family and audio pulled from those body cam videos. When I first got the videos, I stared at the attachments in my email for a long time. I didn't want to look. But I think it's important that we do look at what happened. It's part of what I have to do to examine police killings as a public health threat. Denzel was staying with his father and his stepmom. It was raining that night. Denzel and his dad, Milton Taylor, were stuck in the house together. They got into an argument. Things escalated. Denzel's mom, Jean Kelly, was asleep in Chicago, some 400 miles away. In the early hours of the morning, Denzel's sister ran into her room yelling,
"Mom, wake up." I said, "What happened?" She said, "Denzel just shot Daddy." I said, "What? Denzel just shot Daddy? That doesn't make any sense at all."
49-year-old male, gunshot wound, 2 to 3 shots to the chest. 5 officers on scene.
By the time police arrived at Milton's home, Denzel had left. EMTs stabilized Milton and took him to the hospital.
We're running hot. St. Francis, one patient.
Meanwhile, up in Chicago, Jean's trying to figure out what's going on. She calls Milton's wife, Denzel's stepmom.
she said she had a couple of family members out looking for Denzel, because she was saying, I want them to find him before the police finds them.
Police are speaking with Denzel's stepmom when he appears. The body camera video shows the scene from an officer's perspective. By now, it's stopped raining. A street lamp lights up the end of the block. Police had wrapped the area in yellow police tape. The camera shows Denzel standing in the near distance on the other side of the yellow tape. He's wearing a hoodie.
Show me your hands now. Take your hand out of your pocket. Just kill me, bro. Now.
They were saying, put your hands up or whatever they said to him. And there were some words exchanged. And it sounded like he said, well, shoot me, bro. Just go ahead, shoot me.
The officers fire their guns.
They hit my son one time, I believe, if not two. And my son fell. He dropped to his knees and fell face down.
There's a pause. It's just a moment or two. But as I watch it, it feels longer. And then the police fire again, sending bullets into his body on the ground. They keep shooting. You can hear dozens of shots.
We got shots fired. We need EMS. We got one subject now, shots fired. Stop. Hands now! Stop. Hands! Hands! Hands!
One officer walks up and uses his foot to roll Denzel the rest of the way onto his stomach. Denzel groans as the officer pins his arm behind his back and handcuffs him. They search his body.
God damn it.
Police don't find a gun or any weapon, just a piece of wood in his hoodie pocket.
Are you serious? Stick of wood.
Police call for an ambulance.
South County EMS respond to one subject shot, time of page 0236.
On the body camera video, one officer points a flashlight in Denzel's face.
Why didn't you just take your hand out of your pocket, man?
Minutes tick by. Red and blue police lights flash off the wet pavement.
Can you hear me?
Denzel is still in the street, motionless. EMS arrive, but it's too late. Denzel is dead. Over the radio, the dispatcher calls for the coroner.
Yes, ma'am. Can you contact coroner? 10-4.
Kiki had been out of town. She got the call as she was driving back to Sikeston. The police had killed Denzel.
And I said, no, they did not. No, they did not. I couldn't believe it. It was heartbreaking.
A special prosecutor declined to file charges against the police officers who killed Denzel. The officers did not comment for this project. Sikeston Chief of Public Safety, James Millen, says the officers believed Denzel was armed and that they were in fear for their life. Denzel's family sued the city of Sikeston. The city and the family reached a wrongful death settlement for $2 million. Close to half of it went to legal fees. Most of the rest of it will go to Denzel's daughters. Kiki thinks a lot about how life goes on for the officers who killed Denzel.
They still get to see their family every single day of their life. They still get to call their daughters. They still get to go home and tuck their kids into bed. Denzel can never do that, ever. Ever again. I'm a forced single parent. I have to push through it every single day.
Kiki watched the body cam video over and over, but Denzel's death just wouldn't sink in, and she's worried about their daughters.
I hope they never see the video, because that's traumatizing, because that's their dad.
Eventually, Kiki left Sikeston. She says there are too many memories of Denzel and what happened to him there. On the day I visited her new home, it was just over a year after Denzel's death.
Woo!
2-year-old Diana is napping in the next room. Kiki has the youngest, Brooklyn, on her lap. And the oldest, Dania, is everywhere. Right now, she's zooming through the dining room on a scooter.
She just did like a trick, like a BMX. She's BMXing in this apartment right now. Is she a daredevil?
She do that all the time. Nuh-uh, too much. No bite.
Eventually, Dania parked her wheels and talked to me. Let's just get this started. Tell me your name again and how old you are.
4.
And what is your name?
Dania.
In my time as a health reporter, I've written a lot about the impact gun violence has on kids. I've gotten some training in how to talk to them about it on their level without re-traumatizing them. Your mommy's sitting here and she said I have permission to ask you about your daddy.
Was it daddy?
Do you miss your daddy?
Yes.
Yeah? Where's your daddy?
I don't know.
Yeah.
This is sipping. Just sipping.
You said he's sleeping?
Yes.
That's what she said. She said, my daddy's sleeping.
Dania is trying to make sense of why her dad isn't with them anymore. And Kiki doesn't know what to tell her.
Like last night, she actually woke up out of her sleep and she was crying. And she was like, Mama, my daddy. And I didn't know what to tell her because it's like, what did you tell a 4-year-old that they're never, ever going to see their dad again?
I called a pediatrician, Rhea Boyd, to talk about what losing a parent to police violence could mean for kids like Dania, Ayana, and Brooklyn.
Regardless of the age, children experience longing. They miss people when they don't see them again. Even babies can experience that.
Losing a parent, especially to violence, can have a major impact on a child's future health.
Certain experiences, including the death of a parent, increases a child's risk for certain physical health ailments like heart disease, kind of neurologic ailments like increased risk for Alzheimer's, mental health impairments like increased risk for depression, and these are increased risks as they move into adulthood.
Study after study show the link, even if we don't totally understand all the mechanisms.
It's not just innate to our biology, it's because of the conditions in which Black folks have been forced to live.
Black people in the United States carry more stress throughout their lives than white people. That doesn't change, even when they make more money. Researchers have tied that stress to the racism we deal with in everyday interactions and to the institutional racism that makes it harder for us to take care of ourselves and our families. Black people age faster, get sicker, and die sooner than our white peers, and carrying chronic stress is a factor. Rhea says police violence contributes to this too.
Police are public institutions, and when they disproportionately take the lives of Black folks or disproportionately police Black neighborhoods, that has direct impacts on our lives, on our well-being.
Kiki says back when she was living in Sikeston, she felt anxious every time she saw police lights in her rearview mirror.
Now it's like, okay, here it go again. I'm getting pulled over again. Because I'm used to it at this point. I'm used to it.
Used to it, maybe, but not numb to it.
I can't tell my kids, hey, don't be scared when you get pulled over. I can't tell them that because I'm still scared myself. Even a year later, I'm still scared.
Rhea calls this anticipatory stress.
Anticipatory stress means you carry a level of vigilance and worry and concern about things that might happen to you or your kids.
Children can pick up on what's going on in these situations and can end up carrying that toxic stress too. Denzel Taylor's mother, Jean Kelly, told me about the worry that comes with having a Black son in America. The fear that he could become that 1 in 1,000 Black men killed by police.
Lord, have mercy on me. I said, Lord, have mercy on me.
Jean says before Denzel's death, her spirit was on alert, like she was bracing for something bad, and a tune kept playing over and over in her mind.
Lord, have mercy on me. I said, Lord, have mercy on me. I needed his mercy and his grace and strength and everything to prepare me for what was to be. Whatever was to be, I was going to need his mercy.
I know what Black people are dealing with today, but I can only imagine what it would have been like in 1942 when Cleo Wright was lynched.
The type of control people had their kids and their body under constantly so that they weren't the victim of that type of violence. I think physiologically, it was likely so enormous that the intergenerational effects of that type of terror still live in our bodies as descendants of those who experienced it.
Research is starting to explore how living with this kind of terror could go beyond behaviors to something deeper, changing how our genes work. Some of this research comes out of a field called epigenetics. It's the idea that something you experience can change how the genes in your body are expressed. And that can have huge impacts on your health. It could make you age quicker or be more prone to developing a disease like cancer. And epigenetic research is looking into how things your ancestors experienced could also affect your health today. A police shooting and a lynching. 2 Black men killed in the same community nearly 80 years apart. As I reported their stories, many people have asked why we're examining the deaths of Cleo Wright and Denzel Taylor side by side. After years of reporting on these deaths, I've decided as a health reporter, I want to focus on this: the trauma that remains after the violence against these men, the possible health effects for their families and their communities. I want to better understand what the loss could mean for Cleo and Denzel's daughters, little girls growing up without their dad. Cleo's daughter, Nannetta Forrest, wasn't born yet when her father was killed. When we last spoke a few years before she died, she was 78 years old, and she said she was still asking herself that question that had nagged at her whole life. Who would she have been?
Would I have been the same person? Would I have been a different person?
And Denzel's girls, Dania and Diana, and Brooklyn, who wasn't born yet. Brooklyn might ask herself the same thing as she grows.
She has no memory. She's never seen him a day in her life. So it's like she'll never know him, like, as a person.
Just like Nannetta, Denzel's girls are facing higher risk of psychological and mental health problems, and the possibility that losing their father this way could change how their genes work. In the face of those risks and possibilities, Kiki's looking for ways to protect her daughters. She's moved them away from Sikeston to a city where she hopes they'll have more peace. She wants them to know all about their dad and how much he loved them. And she wants them to know his voice.
Hey, Cote.
It's the opposite of silence. She wants them to be able to heal out loud. On the next episode, we're in Sikeston, where people are looking for ways to heal and move forward after the deaths of Cleo Wright and Denzel Taylor.
We gotta look in the mirror and say, am I doing what I can to try and change the dynamic of Sikeston, even if it does hurt? That's what we have to start doing.
Including the possibility for big changes, community-level, system-wide changes.
I get frustrated, and I'm trying to direct the frustration into something that could actually work.
That's next time on the final episode of Silence in Sikeston. Thanks for listening to Silence in Sikeston. Next, go watch the documentary. It's a joint production from Retro Report and KFF Health News, presented in partnership with World. Subscribe to World Channel on YouTube. That's where you can find the film Silence in Sikeston, a local USA special. This podcast is a co-production of World Channel and KFF Health News and distributed by PRX. It was produced with support from PRX and made possible in part by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation. The audio series was reported and hosted by me, Cara Anthony. Zach Dyer and Taylor Cook are the producers. Editing by Simone Popperl. Tanya English is managing editor of the podcast. Sound design, mixing, and original music by Lonnie Rowe. Podcast art design by Colin Mahoney and Tanya Castro-Dane. Una Zenda and Lydia Zara are the landing page designers. Have you seen the amazing Sikeston photography? It's from Michael B. Thomas, and Lynn Shallcross is the photo editor. Thank you to my vocal coach, Vicki Merrick. Music in this episode is from Epidemic Sound and Blue Dot Sessions. Additional audio from the CBS TV show Strike It Rich and Denzel Taylor's Family. Some of the audio you hear across the podcast is also in the film. For that, special thanks to Adam Zletz, Matt Gettemeyer, Roger Herr, and Philip Jalen. Kira Darden is executive producer at Retro Report. I was a producer on the film. Jill Rosenbaum directed the documentary. Keisha Weir is national editor at KFF Health News. World Channel's editor-in-chief and executive producer is Chris Hastings. We're keeping this conversation going on Instagram and X. Tarina Lofton and Hannah Norman are engagement and social media producers for the show. Help us get the word out about Silence in Sikeston. Write a review or give us a quick rating wherever you listen to this podcast. Thank you. It makes a difference. Oh yeah, and tell your friends in real life too.